lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fior.
In this episode of What is Titoism, we're going to be discussing how the structure of a Titoist government looks like and along with how elections worked. Of course, I wouldn't be making a political video if I didn't mention something controversial, such as this video is going to be based on the 1974 Constitution. The reason I'm choosing that Constitution is that it combines a lot of the economic and political structures that were being in place in Yugoslavia. But it does have some issues with it, in my opinion, that I will address. The last thing I want to mention before starting is that there were ideas and laws that were not either fully applied or practiced in Yugoslavia that are still Titoist ideas. Let's start off with where people's votes go in the main bodies of government. Now, if you just look up elections in Yugoslavia in 1974 or in general, you're going to find this general diagram, and you might be and probably will be confused at first. This is part of why I'm making this video, to explain really where votes went and how the government worked on its own. For instance, let's say you work as a tiler in construction. You and your fellow tilers have a union because your fellow workers have some common sense, and you work and live in your community called, let's say, City Mango, because I love mangoes. The tiler union in your city isn't the only union, obviously. And so your union and all the other unions elect delegates for the Chamber of Associated Labor in your city and surrounding communities. Supposing you're interested in representing your fellow tilers and are elected as one of the delegates for the chamber from your union. Of course, you're not only friends with your fellow tilers and workers, and people sometimes want to be represented on a broader scale because work isn't the only part of your life. You live in the neighborhood of Baklavoville and elect delegates for the Chamber of Local Communities. This chamber has delegates from all the local communities in your, let's say, county. Most people in the world are also part of the party, just like how you might have a party membership to whatever party you're a part of. Of course, in our great socialist country, we don't have any bourgeoisie democracy or parties, so we have the Communist Party. I think this would be used for something else slightly, but I'll get onto that in a bit. Back to the elections then. You elect a representative to the socio-political chamber to try to guide and make sure the communal assembly is maintaining its goals to achieve our goal, communism. So now we have gotten to how you might elect for representatives in your county in the communal assemblies. But what about the federal or other parts of the government? This is where the communal assemblies vote on things other than your local laws and budgets. They also voted for in Yugoslavia for members into the assemblies of republics and provinces from their respective chambers. This assembly could be applied to other places differently and depending on how a place has been divided. For instance, in the United States, these might be like a state assembly, or in Ireland, it might be a provincial assembly. Next, the Assembly of Republics and Provinces elect from the Chamber of Communes within the Assembly of Republics, who serve dual mandates within the Federal Assembly Chamber of Republics and Provinces and the Assembly of Republics. The Assembly of Republics as a whole elects members for the Federal Chamber. Keep in mind, so far, each assembly would have elected a president for its respective assembly. I say this because now we get on to electing the president, or should I say presidents. You see, a big part of the electoral process was to make sure each ethnic group in some way was represented equally generally. While in 1974, our man Tito was re-elected as president of Yugoslavia, which he had major influence, he technically wasn't the only one, though. From 1974, there were 9 members of the presidency, or 9 presidents. Each member was elected by the Federal Assembly from each republic and autonomous province. In case you can't grasp a country without a single head of state, Yugoslavia before 1974 had 23 presidents in a single term. The president's powers were like most: representatives of the country inside and outside, commanding the army, proposing candidates for the federal constitutional judges or the Supreme Court, appointment of ambassadors, generals, and admirals, awarding decorations, and appointing heads of the National Defense Council and Federal Council for Protection of the Constitutional Order, aka in charge of the country's internal security. I will get into how the police and internal security worked in my Titoist video on police and the army later on. Each president had a term of 5 years, with, after Tito's death, a chairman having a 1-year term. The chairman is mostly a figurehead, though, of the presidency. To conclude this, I thought I would mention my ideas into applying this. I believe that it might be better to cut out the assemblies electing members to other assemblies and rather do direct voting. Likewise, I think it would be better to elect presidents directly, much like Bosnia and Slovenia would. As to the idea mentioned earlier with the socio-political chamber, I feel this could be where other leftist political groups could be elected, in my opinion. Finally, I think the idea of equal representation is a really good idea, and part of the reason I became a Titoist. This could be applied in scenarios and in regions where there is a history of tension. Although Yugoslavia would become infamous for its collapse, I will get into how that occurred in a later video. If there was anything you think I mixed up, just was flat out wrong about, or want to discuss Titoism regarding elections, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and hit the subscribe button for more Titoist content.